Greetings, and welcome to Ealdormere at Home,
a web series dedicated to keeping the Northfolk connected.
And now it's time for Wolves of the Breed.
Good evening, Lord Korigan.
Good evening, Your Excellency.
Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk with you today.
Well, thank you for having me.
So, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, I can do that. I'm Lord Korigan. I actually started fighting before the SCA. So I actually did life steel fighting with a group in my area that also taught children for their school.
Mm-hmm.
I actually joined the SCA in about 2008, actually through His Majesty. He actually came by to the life steel fighting group, fought with us, started talking about the SCA, got me all excited about it, because I love the diversity, the difference, the challenges, trouble with a small group. You don't get much of that, so the SCA actually excited me quite a bit. So 2008, I authorized, and currently I reside with Petrathul in Septentria. I've been fighting ever since, and yeah, no, it's fighting is actually really something I enjoy. It's I find it very fun. I find it very exhilarating. I also have like some anxiety in there, in which I find fighting actually helps with that. It helps mentally for me. And yeah, no, it's been quite the road. Currently I'm within the household of Sir Alfwin. She's my knight, which I find awesome. She has a lot of knowledge, helps me learn, knocks in my head a little bit when I need it. So yeah, no, it's I also dabble in blacksmithing, armor making, usually leather work. I just started with blacksmithing not long ago. I haven't gotten too far with that, but I do enjoy it. I'm in mundane. I'm a welder fitter, so I naturally work with metal.
Right.
Yeah, so, but I enjoy fighting quite a bit. It's the biggest draw for me in the SCA, but I also love the friendships I make. The family is also very important for me. So, but yeah, no.
Do you have a preference in weapons?
I usually go for sword and shield. I fight with a center boss. My persona is Norse, about 1,000 or area-ish.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, yeah, no, sword and shield is my go-to. I do dabble in polearm. Occasionally 2 weapons, not often.
Mm-hmm.
Usually fight more in tourneys rather than melee, though I will fight in melee. I try to go more for the 9-foot pole work, so I find that more fun than a shield wall. I don't get too banged up.
Do you have a favorite tournament that you like to participate in?
So far, one of my favorites is Tournoi. Tournoi de Glace is actually one of my favorites. It's close to home, and I enjoy the pageantry of it, the intensity of it. That's my biggest one. I do enjoy Trillium, the Rose Tourney. That's another one that I have enjoyed. Also, there's when the Feast of the Bear happens, I enjoy that as well. But Tournoi de Glace is one of my biggest.
It is a great event. I'll agree. Yeah, for myself as well. Do you have anything that you might, any piece of advice that you might give to fighters who are not enjoying the fact that we're not able to fight right now?
Oh, I feel for her. Yeah, sure.
How are you
If
coping with it?
I try to cope. I do have a pal. Pal work is a great way to help perfect on your technique. Doing slow work first. That way you get the muscle memory to go. If you got like a 4x4 with you can make a stand for it, wrap either some rope or even old carpet you like say you want to throw out. There you can also make one that you could pull apart, which one I have, which is great if you have small spaces. I live in an apartment, so I was actually able to have it inside. So actually it benefits. You can't do the long weapons. I weren't on that, but like the slow shield work. Yeah, no, no, not in an apartment. It doesn't work too well, trust me.
Unless you're really friendly with your neighbors.
Yeah, you could. I'm more worried about damage on like the walls or something.
Enough,
So yeah, yeah, no, pal work is really good. Slow technique. Put in some footwork. Shadow boxing is another one to help with the footwork and your foot placement. Yeah, stuff like that. Or even if you have like an outside and you are big on pole arm and thrusting, if you have a way to hang a ball for to thrust to help with your target, that's another way you could do it. That's the biggest things that I've used. So pal work, shadow boxing, and target. Just you don't have to go crazy fast. It's nice and slow at first is really good so you don't make mistakes.
And
your muscles will.
It sounds like that approach would work all year round because you can do it inside.
Yeah, you would. It would. It's especially providing if you do have the space, even in an apartment. I know some places can be small, but it is rather helpful. When I started doing it, I noticed a difference dramatically afterwards.
How do you find yourself staying engaged with the SCA in this year of the plague?
A lot of it's the virtual meetings. Petrothul still has weekly meetings, but over Zoom is what we're doing right now, or even with the court and Bardic stuff over Ealdormere over Zoom. It helps to see the faces of the people you don't see much anymore with the distancing. I find that it helps for me. So as long as I could get to see them, but even though we have to be careful.
It's true. It's true. One last question. You mentioned that you found that fighting was helping with anxiety. If you feel comfortable, could you tell me more about that?
Sure. I find it's a great way to release. It helps with the tension, the stress. You're in that moment, and it's the physical helps. It's like I also find working out the similarity. So you're in the focus, you're exerting physically, and you're not focused so much up here that you don't feel it as much. Does that make sense?
Well, I was going to ask, do you find that so I'm a rapier, a fencer, and I find sometimes I feel it here when I go to a practice, when I could go to a practice, and I'm talking about fencing, or I'm throwing weapons, and I'm talking about throwing weapons, that feeling of camaraderie, the feeling that I am part of a group and we're all working towards, being the best that we can be in whatever we're doing. I find that takes me here.
Yeah, no, I find that as well. The camaraderie with all the fighters, that's something in common that you're doing, and you're coming together to bring it out. I totally get that.
Yeah, I'm finding that things like Bardic after their Majesty's court, that brings me back.
It does. The memories of Trillium and I haven't been to Pentic yet, but No,
Oh,
it does.
next year?
Hopefully, I was hoping to go this year, but well, that went out the window.
Well,
So
I'll
there's
tell
hope.
you what, if you do get to go to Penzic and I'm there, I'll treat you to a nice coffee at Odyssey Coffee, okay?
Oh, thank you very much, Your Excellency. That's an excellent offer. I'll keep that in mind. Definitely.
Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me this evening, Lord Korigan. I really appreciate having the chance to talk with you tonight.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me, Your Excellency.
Good night.
Good night.
Let's learn more about another officer of Ealdormere.
So hello, Master Martin. Thank you for joining us today. You are our Kingdom Youth Chancellor. If you could introduce yourself and tell us a bit about the office and what you do, that would be lovely.
All right. I'm Master Martin Bildner, and I've been a member of the SCA for over 25 years and a little bit longer if you include the years that I was just doing all the stuff for my brother. I officially became the Kingdom Youth Chancellor a couple of years ago now, but I kind of took on that job a little bit in an unofficial capacity long before that, because mundanely I'm a teacher, and I'd much rather spend my time playing with the kids and teaching them stuff rather than marking somebody's assignments. So when it comes to Kingdom ANS a number of years ago, I decided, you know what, rather than joining the judges, I'm just going to do pentathlons for the kids. And so I think I've run at least 5 or 6 years of pentathlons at Kingdom ANSs. And then all the other stuff in between, because I have a small child, and if he's bored, I'm in trouble. So, yep. So as the Chancellor of Youth and Youth Programs, I am a deputy under the Kingdom Seneschal. And according to the Kingdom laws, I am responsible for the organization of children's activities within Ealdormere, which doesn't necessarily mean anything because anybody can organize activities. And in fact, I really encourage that to happen. You know, when I started in the SCA, children's activities generally involved a pack of crayons and some photocopies from some children's coloring books on a medieval theme. And that wasn't very interesting for the kids, and the kids got bored, and then the parents got in trouble. And today there's so many more families, it's even more important that we have good activities that are enjoyable for everybody.
It's definitely having, being a parent and having kids that have grown up in the SCA, it's definitely important to have kids activities that happening around the kingdom. So you've talked about youth activities. What are some of your favorite youth activities that happen at events?
Okay, so that's hard. We've done some amazing things over the years. I remember doing some bread sculptures and copper bracelets and instrument making. But what I really enjoy doing is when the kids and I all work together on a project and do bigger themed activities. Like when we've done the plays at Trillium War with the puppet play of the Bremen Town Musicians, or the big all full cast of Beowulf. And those have just been a real blast. And, you know, we've got all sorts of things that we do, all getting our props and everything ready. And then just going around and performing it for everybody at the event has been just a lot of fun.
The ones at Trillium War are, I love the plays. But I can see that you would need a couple of days to organize that as opposed to a one-day event.
Well, actually, no. The plays really got started at the barn parties that we've been holding at my place for Mana, that we've been doing for years. And I guess 5 or 6 years ago, the kids decided they wanted to put on a play for the parents. And so my wife being in theater, our barn is just chock-a block full of old set pieces, props, costume bits. And so they just kind of raided the place and started putting together these plays that they would work on all afternoon. And then after supper, they'd say, okay, it's time for the play before we get dragged away. And sometimes they made sense. Sometimes the plays were utter chaos, but they had fun. So.
And that's the key with youth activities, is that everybody has a good time, right?
Well, absolutely. You know, the thing is that the thing about running youth activities is that you don't get too, you don't want to dumb things down, because the kids can actually are a lot smarter than we give them credit sometimes. But you have to be prepared for just about anything that happens. So if we're all carving little snails and bears, you know there's going to be at least one or two kids that says, I'm going to make a snake. They've got their own minds, and you know, sometimes you'll have all these good plans and they'll follow them to a T, and sometimes not so much.
So flexibility is a good thing then in a youth officer.
Absolutely.
Do you have any maybe suggestions or recommendations if groups are trying to include youth activities? Sometimes I think it can be difficult from the event staff point of view, especially if they don't have kids or they're not used to planning children's activities. Do you have any recommendations for groups?
Yeah, so first of all, just don't be afraid of it. Do it. The worst thing that can happen is it will fail. But even by failing, you've made the attempt. And you know what? When you're dealing with kids' activities, failing just means that they'll come in and then after 5 minutes, they disappear on you. And then, okay, so I've done all this prep work that I'm not ready for. Well, if you did it smart, then you get the adults to come in and do it instead. And maybe the kids will then come back later and decide they do like it. I've had a number of activities where you're going, okay, so none of the kids actually want to do this today. Well, that's too bad. I'll keep that in my bag for another day. And usually, but there's often a time that, you know, right before you go to clean it up, then they'll want to do it. And we had that happen at Wassail this past year, that we were going to do the soapstone carving, and we did I had 3 kids that were starting to carve, and they, okay, so we'll clean it up. Nope, another 3 kids came, and then, oh, clean it up. Nope. And suddenly when I wanted to clean it up, then we had 18. I don't know where these kids came from, but they just came from everywhere. The other thing is, don't forget the youth. We do a lot of little kids activities, but we've got a lot of tweens and young teenagers that are really, they want to do something that's different than the little kids, but they don't really want to join in with the adults. And they're a hard group to sell sometimes, but when you can get them into it, they really put their heart and soul into these things, and they can do amazing things. And it's, you know, that's the age that we really don't want to lose them, because they become the ones that really fight the parents when they about coming to events if they're not having fun. And so if we can make it interesting for them, then it's, you know, it makes it possible for the SCA to continue, really.
Oh, agreed. It is so very important to kind of keep everybody coming out and finding ways that everybody can have a good time at events. I know one of the things that we had talked about a bit before we started recording was some kingdoms have the YAFA program, which is one that is comes from corporate, like it's designed kind of for use in all the kingdoms, but we don't use YAFA here. So could you tell us a bit about the program and what we kind of do instead? And
so the YAFA stands for Youth and Family Achievement Program, and it is a program that it was created by the SCA to try and get children and youth more engaged. Ealdormere looked into it when it was first proposed, but it involved a lot of mentorship, and we just didn't have the population to make it sustainable. And I like to think that we've been creating similar educational and mentoring experiences without all the merit badges and red tape that's involved with. So yeah, it's a great program when you have a large kingdom and you've got lots of people that can give their input, but it would pretty much require us getting every man, woman, and dog in Ealdormere with their certificate so they could, mentor the kids individually, and that's just not feasible. Under current SCA law, we do, when we run children's activities, we do have to have a two-deep procedure where we have two adults that are not related, one of them having had a police check done. And we've got a fair number in the kingdom that now have that. But if you're running an event and you're wanting to run children's activities, don't let that stop you, because two things. One, as long as it's done in the open hall and you make it an all ages thing, which the kids like to have anyway, it's not really a problem. Especially younger kids usually have to have their parents with them anyway, and so you've already got an unrelated adult, and usually there's at least a few of us that if you give us a shout and saying we want to do this, I've got somebody to run the class, and go, oh, I'll come in and sit in the background. That's not a problem.
I think, and it's important to note that the background check has to be done through the SCA background check. I know many people have background checks because of their employment, and it has to be the SCA background check through the kingdom. Otherwise, they don't, the SCA, regardless of what we want to do, doesn't recognize other background checks. It has to be that specific one.
Yeah, and it does get a little bit complicated, because you're saying the company that does the background checks for the SCA is the same company that does the background checks for people who do the Scouts and Girl Guides. But because of the nature of background checks, they can't actually give that information out to any other group than the ones that they've been hired to give the background checks to. So that's why you have to do it. It's the same thing, not only just within the SCA, but I know it in the school boards. I know some teachers are going, but my background check is in the filing cabinet right behind you. Oh, but you're not allowed to see it because it's in the supply teacher, not the regular teacher cabinet. And it's just the way of background checks.
Yep. So if people want to help out with youth activities, and can they reach out to you to kind of get that organized, or? Absolutely.
And that's the other thing, is that even if you're not willing to, you're not the type of person that wants to run classes, and you don't really spend enough time with the kids that you think you want to get the background check done and help out in that way, there's still lots of times that we just want somebody else in the back, to help make sure that Tommy is not throwing the paint over the place, or that helping pick up afterwards. We always need extra bodies, and so just volunteering to help occasionally is also really appreciated.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add that you can think of? I think we've covered a few things, but
you know what? All I have to say is it's a lot of fun, and even when I pass on this job officially, I don't think it's something I'm ever going to stop doing. And the kids are all they're just great. So way to go, Ealdormere, for having breeding up such a good batch of next generations.
Well, I know that as a parent, I've enjoyed over the years the activities and stuff that you've provided at events that my children have taken part in the past, and we're really thankful that you continue to do that. And regardless of the office, I know you're definitely one that helps make sure youth activities happen, and that's really wonderful to see. So thank you very much, Master Martin.
You're welcome, Your Majesty.
And thank you very much for joining us on Ealdormere at Home. It's been lovely chatting with you and finding out more about what you do in the office. Thank you.
Time for another Artisan Spotlight.
Master James FitzMordain Blackcloak, better known as Jamie, has been studying dance for over 29 years. Both of his parents, Sir Mordain Blackcloak and Viscountess Alfleda Fitzallen, are longtime players. So Jamie was born into the society and began dancing when he was only 4 years old. When Jamie first started to research dance, he focused mainly on English country dance, pattern-based dances for groups of people. These kinds of dances are the ancestors of square dancing and contra dance. More recently, he has switched focus to 16th century Italian dance, which are mostly for a pair of dancers and relies on precise footwork. In 2017, Jamie was made a Companion of the Order of the Laurel, in recognition for his dedication to the study of dance. He continues to regularly read, reconstruct, and teach from Italian manuscripts. He has done several complex choreographies in an English country dance style. His most ambitious choreography is a long and intricate one, and designed for 12 dancers. He has also created a 16th century Italian choreography, complete with written documentation in a period style.
And now look at our histories.
Hello, I'd like to welcome Duke Finnvarr to Ealdormere at Home. Duke Finnvarr is here today to talk on the earliest days of how the SCA got started in Ontario. Would you mind please giving a brief introduction of yourself and how the SCA came to be in Canada?
Well, I'm here today because I am a very early member of the SCA by anybody's calculations. To be older, I'd have to be somebody working from the Bay Area of California. I've actually been involved for over 50 years. Otherwise, I am a historian, a retired historian of the Middle Ages. So I've got both ways of looking at what I do in connection with the Middle Ages. Groups in Ontario formed fairly early in the SCA's history, and we were part of the Middle Kingdom, and the Middle Kingdom was the third kingdom of the SCA, and people got involved in the SCA in Ontario because they moved up from the States to Canada. People moved up from these places in Canada and said, there's no SCA here. We ought to do something about that so we can continue having fun. And so I call this phenomenon the American invasion of Ealdormere. Because they were all Americans, including me. And one of the things that's interesting is that the American invasion is kind of like invasions of Canada in other parts of Canadian history. A lot of the stuff that has taken place in Canadian history originated in the States, and people moved up for their own reasons. So you have, for example, you have the case of the Northwest Territories. Northwest Territories were given to English/German nobleman in the 1600s, and by his friend the king. Neither the king, which was Charles II, nor Prince Rupert of the Rhine, which is the person I'm talking about, neither of them had been to Canada, and neither of them ever went to Canada.
Oh, really?
So compare this to a couple of people in the very early SCA, an early Middle Kingdom event. One of them is a king, me. Another one's a duke. Duke Caeriadoc, the first king of the Middle Kingdom. And they say, out of curiosity, Duke Caradoc asked King Finnvarr, which kingdom should Ontario, Toronto be in? You're moving up there. What do you think? Well, I thought it made more sense that it should be that the Toronto group should be part of the Middle Kingdom. That was it. Nobody else was consulted. The board of directors was not consulted. But it's we oozed up across the border, and we wanted to continue what we were already doing.
So it all sort of started in U of T?
The most important early group was the University of Toronto's group, which it became Everwick when it was big enough to actually be a working group. And part of it, two people moved up there. Both of them were going to grad school at the University of Toronto, medieval studies. And I was one of them. The other one was Gillian Duriel, who was the first Baroness of Septentria eventually. And we had the advantage of knowing people outside of Ontario. They weren't too terribly far away and could be lured up. Toronto had quite a reputation for being a cool place in the early 70s. Other groups popped up fairly quickly too. Ottawa, the Ottawa group, Scraly Hall thing.
Mm-hmm.
The Windsor group, fairly quickly. The Windsor group is an example of the American invasion. There they
That's
were.
pretty close to the border.
That's exactly right, and it was a big advantage to them to be close to the border, because the Detroit group, Roaring Wastes, had grew pretty quickly. And back in those olden days when you could use the bridge to go to a different country, you could go to a different country. And we also had that group from East Lansing, which was very successful. It was one of the best groups in the kingdom. We had a lot of fighters, and they were really good. We had dancers, we had music, we had a lot of cool stuff. One year on Thanksgiving, a carload of people came up from East Lansing, and when they arrived at my house, they took me out to the car and they opened up the back of it, and there were all these cans, all the Freon cans, and basically it had really one usable helmet, mine.
Yeah.
Or that, and then you can't do a lot with one helmet.
Yeah. How did you get around that, just having one helmet?
Well, we practiced a bit. We practiced, people throwing blows at somebody with
oh, the person who does have the helmet?
I was generally the target.
Yeah.
But they were as well.
Mm-hmm.
One important thing is the personal connections that we made with people in Toronto. One example we could say was the car that had the Freon cans in the back also had Fern de la Forêt in the back. Fern had just joined the SCA in the previous few months. And the importance of Fern is that she was one of the very first fighting women in the SCA.
Oh, wow.
And she, at the point when she brought up the cans, no, women were not fighting yet.
Mm-hmm.
But she was the kind of person who took that kind of initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Having an example in front of you by a real human being makes a big difference sometimes. Basically, the big issue was that the men of the SCA were not very encouraging by and large.
Right.
For women doing this kind of stuff. The funny thing is that Callantyre, where St. Louis is located, became famous for its fighting women. Not too many years later, So it's an example of cultural back and forth.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Do you remember the first Canadian that joined the Toronto group?
I think you're probably talking about Graf Hugo
Yes, I
from
believe so.
Feuerklippe. Yes, he's a person that's worth mentioning because he joined really early on. He threw himself into fighting to fight, and he became an extremely good fighter. And eventually, he became the first knight from Canada, a Canadian knight, not an American invader. And he also became king. He was king once, and it was an era where we were getting a lot of homegrown Canadian members. They didn't depend anymore on American invaders. There weren't that many people coming up. We kind of had skimmed the surface of the pool, and neighbors or fellow students to an existing group which was perfectly capable of teaching them about the SCA. So it's no longer necessary after, I don't know when it would be, 1975, 76, maybe. You don't have American invaders so much after that. You have real Canadians.
Now for a Bardic interlude.
It was sometime last September, as near as I can remember, while strolling down the street in tipsy pride, there was nary a shudder as I lay down in the gutter, and a pig came round and lay down by my side. Not a thing was I disturbing, as I lay there by the curbing, till some high-strung lady came to me to say, "You can tell a man who boozes by the company he chooses." So the pig got up and slowly walked away.
Up next, projects.
So what I'm trying to do here is play a game called Heads, or at least practice it. I don't have the proper equipment for it, so I'm making do with an archery target and an apple and a stick I cut down from a tree just off to the side. The game of Heads is one where you are, in theory, chopping the heads off invisible opponents, and it's usually done with a ball on top of a pole, but apparently I don't have a ball, so the apple was a good choice. The apple was also a good choice because whenever it fell on the ground, my horse didn't alarm at the thing falling down. Instead, he was more interested in trying to eat his prize. So he got a reward for the successful knocking the apple off the target attempt as well. And I did it a couple times at a walk to make sure that it was working, and then tried it at a slightly faster gait, more of a shuffle. My horse is a gaited horse. He is a Kentucky Mountain Saddle horse, so he doesn't do a bouncy trot. He does a running walk instead. The horse that I'm riding in this video is, his registered name is Ridgeview's Traveling Man. I named him Strider because I thought that was appropriate for both his long stride and the many trails that I want to go on with him. And I also have another horse named Captiva, who is a smaller, older Pasofino mare. She's also a lot of fun. Her favorite game is archery, whereas Strider, I think, enjoys the game of heads, and he's also been pretty good at any of the practices that I've done with a longer pole, like a lance. So hopefully I will get a chance to actually show those off in person at some equestrian events next summer.
How about some missives? Letters, missives, epistles. Goodbye.
Oh, hello everybody. My name is Strappy Harrington. You may know me from such movies as Nightmare on Hare Street or Wolf Cub Theater. Oh! I want to talk to all the kingdom's plush friends for just a moment. If you're like most plushy Ealdormerans, you've been finding the last few months challenging to keep active and entertained. Well, I know I have. The humans have been home all the time. I have been a bit lonely without being able to see all my friends at events, so I would love to hear all about how you're keeping busy these days. I have a challenge for all the stuffies, toys, plushies, dolls, and puppets in the kingdom. Send me photos and short videos showing what you've been getting up to. Doing crafts, having adventures, or just chilling with your human friends or animal companions. Your submissions will be featured on Ealdormere at Home, so let's do what we stuffies do best. Make everyone's day a little brighter with your photos and videos. So stay happy and safe, everyone, and remember, wash your paws.
That's it for this episode.
If you'd like to appear as a guest or have a story for Ealdormere at Home, please check out our submission guidelines.
Until next time,
Stay safe, Ealdormere.
we'll see you at home.